everybody. People up with the Corrections Unfiltered podcast where corrections meets conversation. Do women belong in corrections? Absolutely. We're going to talk to Selene Martinez, and she's going to tell us about her experience for 13 years in corrections, where she moved from facility to facility. She was promoting her way on up the chain of command, and she really wanted to be a leader. But what happened? She ran into a toxic environment that slowly eroded away at her, and she had to make some decisions. So we're going to talk to her about that. But the corrections, I want you to take this podcast and understand we can fix this, but we have to hear what Selena says. We have to know what to fix, and we've got to get out there and do it because we have to be the ones who take us to the next level. We have to stop all the stuff where we're eating our own, and we have to be able to make corrections the profession it deserves to be, highly respected and out there to protect our community. So let's get in this conversation with Selena. The full cast tonight, we've got Sandra. How you doing, ma'am?
Hello.
Chris, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Real good, real good. Hey, Charlie, how you doing, buddy?
Good. How's everybody doing? Good to see everybody.
Good to see you.
Rick, how about you?
I'm good. Up here in North Idaho, living the dream.
We're going to be talking to Selene Martinez, and she had a pretty good career going in the Department of Corrections, and things were exactly what she was hoping for. She was going to come in. She was going to make a difference. She was full steam ahead. She was transferring from facility to facility. It's her story to tell. But unfortunately, there were a lot of things from the very beginning that were not corrected along her career path. She wants to come on tonight and tell us her story. So, Selena, how are you tonight?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing pretty good. Pretty good. Thank you for coming on. So why don't you catch us up? Let us know what was going on, what made you decide to start in corrections, and how are those first couple of years going for you?
So I started with the Department of Corrections in Colorado in 2013 at a men's medium and close custody facility in Canyon City. What prompted me to get into it, I guess you could say it was the family business. My dad was a police officer for like 30-something years. He was a homicide investigator for the DA where I grew up. My grandpa was a cop, so I kind of always knew it was going to be something that I fell into, but never really expected to wind up in prison. But at the time, DOC had this internship program going where it was like you do 2 years as a CO, and then we'll pay for you to go to post academy and you can go be a parole officer. So that was like the dream that I had. And I'm like, sure, I can do anything for 2 years. I can figure it out. But nothing ever prepared me at 25 years old walking into the craziest situations that I could have ever dreamt of. I had never been experienced to anything like what I had seen there before. And there was a lot of times I wanted to quit, but I had a captain and he was like, give it 3 months. And if you still hate it, you can quit and I won't think anything bad about you. I won't question you at all. So I said, okay, stuck it out. A couple years later, promoted to transport sergeant in a minimum center. And then from there, transferred to the women's facility in Denver and promoted from that facility into the big reception and diagnostic center, which neighbors that facility. And I was a case manager there and then promoted to case manager 3 captain of the diagnostic unit. So that's where I was, but I was deeply, deeply invested in DOC. I lived, breathed, slept blue. I was on the honor guard. I was on the emergency response team. I involved myself in everything, restorative justice groups and offender-led groups, all sorts of stuff. I was like, this is going to be my career. I have long-term goals. And yeah, that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Selena, huge amount of respect for females that can enter male facilities and work at the CO level or any level, because I did some reviews at female facilities and it was very uncomfortable. And so I got a little taste of what female staff go into at a male-dominated environment. The inmates are all male, most of the staff are males. It's got to be incredibly uncomfortable, and you must feel just a mountain of pressure on top of you to perform, to to look like you know what you're doing. Even when, and we all fake it from time to time when we're doing our job, but to perform at a level that you get the respect from your peers. So mad respect for you doing that. So when you started out, did Did you have any problems? Was there any inkling of problems to start out with, or did things kind of progress after a while?
I would say that, all women experience some sort of like, I guess, brotherly teasing in the department. I mean, no matter where you work, it's always going to be like I was saying, to Pete before this podcast is, if I had $1 for every time somebody asked me if it was my time of the month, I would be rich. It's just
Hmm.
gentle teasing like that, I suppose. But
Hmm.
along the way, there were some weird things that happened just being a female. Like if you have that one male offender that's masturbating every time you walk past his room and he knows that you're coming into that pod to do a round, and instead of like handling it, your male counterparts laugh and joke about it or, things like that. It wasn't anything too crazy at the start, but of course I was line staff and I was kind of like in it and joking around with them also. So it wasn't really too big of a deal. It wasn't until I became a supervisor that I really saw just weird things that I didn't agree with, mostly just decision making when it came to like ethical situations or um, things that, policy says one thing, but because of the politics, we're going to do it this way instead.
Yep, I could tell you from my experience in when I first came into corrections. I'll be totally honest with you. I had my reservations about female officers. My first partner, female, 100%. I would take her. When I got promoted, my partner again, female, taught me as much as anybody else did, and would do anything for you, and she'd take the punch for you.
Yeah.
So I think you're in a place where it's on its own with that kind of actions taken toward women, and that's a damn shame. And when you said about uh, you'd be a millionaire for as much as people told you, is it your time of the month or whatever? Well, just let me tell you, from a gentleman's standpoint, I would never ask a woman something like that. And I don't know where
Yeah.
people were brought up that would even ask you a question like that, because you're doing the same job as I'm doing and probably doing it better than most males.
Selena, so the the brunt of the, I guess, the bad time happened more when you were a supervisor?
That's correct.
Yeah. And did you find, well, first of all, how many women worked with you?
Well, everybody that I supervised was female, basically, except for I think I had 2 or 3 males under me. But it was a unit of 23 that I supervised with a co-captain who was male, and he was like my brother. We went through the trenches together with everything. But I would say as far as female supervisors that worked on the complex, like there was quite a few, but um, I would have to be honest and say that we've all experienced something pretty similar just in talking informally with each other.
And was it something that you all agreed on, as far as like, did everyone that had an experience didn't get any type of relief, any response?
The fact that somebody in a position of leadership is coming to you as management and telling you there's something wrong, I'm trying to blow the whistle on this before it turns into something else, I would hope that they would take it seriously and not look at who's reporting it, but like the meat of what's actually being reported.
Do you all go through any type of training for sexual harassment, EEO, things of that nature? I mean, that's part of your initial training
Yes.
and your yearly training. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it's mandatory
Well,
training. And it's like everybody has to do the regular mandatory training, but then supervisors have their own, like, this is what happens when somebody reports something to you sort of training.
I know that you're not done, and I hope you're not done with corrections, because it looks you would be a wonderful asset to any organization. And I hope that you do take the time and think about that, because I certainly believe that you would be, a rising star in any other organization. Where you work sounds like something out of like, Land of the Lost,
Yeah.
Oh,
because
absolutely.
Yeah.
we're like, I can't believe that this is happening like now,
Yeah.
now in this time and age.
Yeah. You.
Selena, when you were talking about how you started out in corrections and there were the snide little comments, that the little bantering here and there, that seemed to be understood to be acceptable. Although now we realize that as that builds up, it becomes completely unacceptable. Was there a time as you were preparing to go to work, whether it was at the house, on the drive in the parking lot, as you walked through the front door, that you had to kind of like hit a different switch just so you'd be able to make it through that shift?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I guess it's like a combination of things whenever you feel like that walking inside, whether it's like you've had a bad week or the day before was really bad, or you just pulled a double and you feel like garbage and you've got 2 hours of sleep before you start your next shift. But before I became a supervisor, I can't think of a time where it was so bad that I was like, I freaking hate this place. I don't want to come back. I'm sick to my stomach. It wasn't until after I got into the role I was in that I was like,
Hmm.
why do I feel like garbage every single day? I'm so tired. I feel like crap. Um, and I have fibromyalgia, just as a disclaimer. So stress will cause me to feel like I have the flu, basically. And I would say, since last June, like every single day, I was like, this place is making me so sick. I can't eat anything when I'm here. I go home, I can't sleep. I'm so tired when I wake up in the morning, just thinking about everything that I was dealing with. Everybody that I had tried to reach out to for help basically told me to, kick rocks until I actually filed a formal complaint. But then things got even worse from there. So, like, it just seemed like there was no relief at all.
Two things. Start out with, I started out in '89, and it was a male facility. There was no female correctional officers. There were some female staff, but they were in support services. But I don't remember a time where I've worked with any males that would. I mean, we all have sisters, we have daughters, we have mothers, we have grandmothers,
Ab-
and it was go time if you disrespected one of the female staff, and that came from another officer or from an inmate. Uh, so I'm still just reeling in my mind to how this
right.
culturally took off like
Yep.
that. And everybody here, we all dealt with the expected hazing. You come in, anybody that doesn't work in corrections or law enforcement may not know, but it just comes with par for the
Right.
course. And there's always the people that take it too far. There's the group out there that don't know when enough is enough, and then you handle that a different way, invitation to the parking lot or whatever it takes to get it over with. Uh, but I still just marvel at the situation you were in. I'll tell you the other observation it's more of an observation than a question, and this is from my own career path, and I think everybody here might agree with it, is that when you're at this like CO level, I started out as a CO. We all coalesced around each other. We all protected each other. We all looked out for each other. And then when you get into the supervisory ranks, it kind of turns into a bloodbath.
Yeah.
Sometimes people are trying to
Right.
one up each other, or they're trying to read the room and figure out how they can maneuver. And then you get the people that are above there that kind of foster that competition or the unhealthy attitudes that can come out of that. And I'm sitting there wondering, was a little bit of that going on? Not to make excuses for anything that went on, but I'm still trying to wrap my mind around the situation. It's crazy, just
Yeah. And
crazy. I feel bad for you.
I mean, definitely, like, I feel like that's in any industry where management's trying to see, like, who's gonna survive this battle, this gladiator
Yeah.
style, and who's gonna be the next one to move up. But um, it's sometimes it just gets to be so toxic. It's almost like high school, the dynamic of like management and first first line supervisors and second line supervisors. Like it's a little silly sometimes. And I will say that there were managers there, majors that did have my best interest in mind and tried to give me some advice on the side of how to handle things because I mean it's their career too and they're not trying to be in bad with their bosses. So like of course, why would they stick their neck out for me, I guess? But it always was just so unfortunate to just go to work and feel so defeated all the time as a supervisor and be like, I have to manage all of this work, all these extra collateral duties that are thrown at me. And then on top of it, I'm battling against subordinates that are being so non-compliant, but not having the support of people above me that actually have the authority to do something about it. And it's all just being like compressed. I think that's just like the toughest part. And to your point, when you were talking about you didn't have any female corrections officers back then, I feel like the system wasn't really designed for us as females. It's not really I mean, we've entered the workforce and we're doing great, but it's not a really great place for a woman to be in an all-male facility. And I would say even in an all-female facility, it gets really rough and tumble sometimes. And I'll be the first to admit that I cannot do everything a man can do. Biologically, you guys are stronger than us. You're built for labor and we're built for, nurturing. Not to say that none of us are strong or that we can handle those situations. It's just that that environment can be so dangerous. At a moment's notice, you never know what you're going to get. And so I think it's awesome that we've kind of like crashed the party as women and gone into these really um, tough fields. But it was definitely
We didn't have female correction officers where I started, and then in '92 they brought them on board, and it was an improvement. It didn't take anything away. I thought it was going to be a disaster, not because they couldn't do the job, but I thought that they were going to be victimized by the inmates. But it turned out to not be so. Not that it never happens, but they brought something to the game that was an improvement, not any kind of an obstacle. And my hat's off to them. Like I said, to walk into, I started at United States Penitentiary Lompoc, and to have females in there was like, I thought this is going to be terrible, and
yeah,
they worked out. They worked out well. I, as a man walking in, there was one thing. As a female to walk in, there was, yeah,
definitely.
mad respect.
Selena, first and foremost, much respect to you. Like Rick said, it's hard to wrap my head around the environment you were exposed to. I was a warden. I considered my staff, males and females, as my law enforcement brother and sisters, and I treated them accordingly. Everyone had value, everyone had worth, everyone contributes to the overall success. Each staff member is a spoke in the wheel to make it go around and to make the complex world of corrections work. That said, how can agencies support women who are dealing exactly with what you dealt with?
That's such a tough question. I guess what I wish I would have had was just one person in that management team that would have been brave enough to stand with me like publicly, not just give me advice here and there and like giving me whispers of this is what you should do next. I really wish that I would have had like an advocate to go with me to the warden's office or to, stand with me when I had to talk to my major that was retaliating against me. Like if I would have just had somebody in my corner that was above me, it would have been night and day difference. I would probably still be working there, but the fact that I was on an island alone and that everybody else that was equivalent to me or below me was too afraid to rock the boat and it was just me like dealing with all this by myself.
And one of the conversations that we've had, actually, we've had it with more than just one person on this podcast. They talk about how they go into corrections brand new, and they get to go through the training, they get there, there's that excitement level, then the reality hits. The inmates are actually inmates, they do talk back. But with them, what was surprising to them was that the staff members exhibited the same or worse behavior. Kind of like you talked about those comments being made. I can't fathom that. I just cannot fathom
Yeah.
those types of things are going to be said in the work environment. And there's not people who's just looking and saying, hey, we've got to put a stop to this. What would you say that you might approach differently? Because you said that it was worse when you became a supervisor. What would you do now to the fresh starting out Selena to start out differently, to say this is not going to happen and I'm going to put a stop to it right away?
That's so hard because I felt like they always teach you in the academy, like when you're dealing with inmates, you go in tough and you can always let up later, but you can never go in soft and then be harder later because you've lost your credibility. So that was my game plan when I first promoted to supervisor. I was like, everything's going to be by the book. It's going to be, this is policy. There is no gray area, and like everything's going to run smooth. But then I learned as a supervisor, sometimes there is gray area. Sometimes you have to use your discretion to make calls that are not just good for one person or just the department. It's good for everybody. So it's tough for me to say what I would have done differently. I think honestly, I probably would have documented a lot earlier on instead of waiting until things were already really bad and then starting my paper trail and my documentation then, because there's so much that I know happened, but I don't have the proof that it happened. And so if I would have just screenshot a chat or saved an email, like I think that things probably would have been smoother for me farther down the road, but having to catch up for a year before I even reported anything and then start saving things made it really hard for me to like make my case, even though I will say I had plenty. It still would have been better for me. So
I guess for me, it's just really trying to capture the fact that nobody was willing to stand up and say this is wrong.
My thought behind this, listen to this, is, you started out as an officer, your group was bigger. Now you're promoting up and people aren't promoting up as fast as you. Now your group's getting smaller. So
Yeah.
now you're at the captain status. Sounds to me more like jealousy and men that don't know how to act like men. And a lot of people thinking she's doing a lot better than I do. And she is better than I am. And that's their way to kind of lash out, more jealousy or whatever. But yeah, and again, I feel horrible that things like that still happen to this day.
When you made the decision to separate and you went ahead and notified your supervisors, was there anyone that said, hey, we don't want you to go? How can we keep you? What do we have to do to keep you?
Good point.
Did you get any of that?
I would say that the ones that actually were in my corner but not out there with it were more like, you're making a huge mistake, like you're throwing away so many years and all that stuff. But the warden actually reached out to the associate warden and asked him to ask me if I would come meet with him, but I did not want to speak with the warden. I mean, the power was in his hands to do something, and to feel so invalidated by him when the final decision came down, that to me, I just felt like it was something to get off of his conscience and not really something that would benefit me in any way. So I respectfully declined, but I it just sucks because the person that really was the final straw for me, that didn't really contribute a lot. They weren't on special teams or volunteered in any extracurricular activities, and so for them to take that person's side over mine, it it really hurt because I'm like, I have so much credibility to who I am. I've never been in trouble. I've done all of these things. I missed my kids' first steps because I was working on graveyard shift, as a CO. I just felt like I'd sacrificed so much for an agency that cared so little about me that I was like, I don't want to talk to anybody. I'm just trying to like dip out of here and go find something else.
Would you, what you experienced in a decade, most will not experience in a 20, 25-year career. And when you reached a point and said, I'm done, looking back, do you have any regrets in your decision?
Mm, I, of course, like when I was packing up my office, I felt so sad. I was like, this, because like you're not only losing a job, you're losing like 13 years of your life that you've spent all this effort building and working so hard. And so when I left, of course, I was like, man, am I making the right decision? In fact, when I put in my notice, and I gave them like a month's notice or something like that, because I didn't want to leave my team high and dry. So I stayed long enough to train people on just like the extra stuff that I do so that it didn't fall through the cracks. But when I put in my notice, I don't know, I felt so sad. I didn't even have a plan. I did not have another job lined up. I did not have any of that figured out. I just knew that if I did not leave soon, I was going to be beyond repairable mentally and physically. Like I was so sick. I was on FMLA for like 2 weeks in September because the stress was just so bad. It was causing my fibromyalgia to flare. And then when I got the transcript back of the investigation from DOC, and I saw in there that they had asked one of the associate wardens about my service there and like everything that I was doing. And when the associate warden, mentioned that I was on FMLA, she said in the transcript that she saw me going out sick as a tactic to avoid accountability, and she was very disappointed in me and taking time off. And so like when I got that transcript back and I read that, I was like, I can't even relax in peace. Like I can't even get better without having all this criticism on me. And that's when I decided I was done. I was like, this is just way too freaking much for me. Like obviously they value all these other things over employee well-being and mental health and like what's right. So I put in my notice, and yeah, I didn't have a job. I didn't have anything. I just figured worst case scenario, I'd pull from my IRA and have enough to live for a couple months and like and find something within that time. But at that point I was so hopeless that I felt like anything was better than showing up and giving that place another day of my hard work. Then, I couldn't do it.
Yeah, I wanted to say, you know, we look. One of the things we do is we track what's going on around different prison systems. We look for all the headline stuff and that sort of thing. And what we find is that the over and over again, at a system level, state, county, whatever, that the same failures are going on over and over again. So while we all sit here and we shake our heads, going, how does this happen? How could this go on in anything post 2000 with the training and the mistakes and all the stuff we've made? I guess we really shouldn't be surprised that this kind of thing happens, and it seems to be at a system level because things like this, if wardens are out there that are behind this kind of activity, and associate wardens, and it's a cultural problem within the system. Um, and I hope that they get a handle on it and fix it. But we like I said, it's at system level. We do it all the time, from everything from forgetting basic security issues to forgetting about staff morale. And these, like what you went through, is a staff morale killer. You lose good employees, whether it's the dollars and cents of it that don't make sense because you lose good employees to problems that are very avoidable, to just having people walking around with their head in the wrong place in a dangerous environment.
Yeah.
It's serious business, and I hope that anybody watching this, first of all, learns from what you went through. And if there's somebody that represents a system, whether it be a contract facility or whatever, takes this seriously so that they don't have this kind of thing going on inside their facilities. This is bad stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I will say that like it's really totally from the top down. I mean, I remember this one time we were having a meeting with executive staff about this assessment that's been making headlines in the news lately because there's been a lot of assessments that were scored incorrectly from way back in the day, and it's causing people to get released prematurely. And so their solution was to have one person, one case manager from every facility do nothing but quality check these assessments. And these assessments are like 102 questions long. My unit kicks out 40 files a day, 40 inmate files a day. There's no way one person can do that. And so on the meeting, I had raised my hand and I was like, what is the incentive to get a case manager to volunteer to do something so tedious and so monotonous day in, day out? Like it's a lot of work. And his answer was, well, if you're talking about monetary support, they're not going to get that. The state is in the biggest budget shortfall, yada, yada. We've all heard that before. But then I was like, but it's not everything is about money. Like if you allowed this person to work 12s or 10s and have, a long weekend, like that's something that we can do where they're still getting their mandatory number of hours, but there's an incentive to being in that spot is you get to have this modified schedule. And all I got back was, at the end of the day, you're the supervisor. It's in their position description. And if you're going to tell them to do that, then they're going to do it. And that's the end of the story. And then they just moved on to the next thing. But I feel like they look at it like a business, corrections like a business, and not really like what it is. We're so lost on the actual mission of corrections, which is to rehabilitate people and push them back out into the public and hope that they don't reoffend. But we're so focused on dollar signs and all these other things that we lose sight of the people that do the hardest work in the facilities, what they're experiencing day in and day out, and like how this is affecting our safety and security further down the line.
Staff are the number one asset that you have. And how you treat your staff is how your staff are going to be professional, treat the inmates.
Definitely.
You didn't have that, and it sounds as though if even the top brass, if even the people who you should have been able to come to, and you did, and you say, hey, here's what we're going through, here's what's happening. If they weren't willing to stand up for you, that's a huge problem.
So I would say one of the most disturbing things that happened to me as a supervisor is I supervised a female staff member, and she was consistently inappropriate with both staff and offenders. It would go from comments to actually touching people. I'll say that I have reported 6 different incidents on this person. Throughout all of this, no matter how much I pressured and pushed for something to be done to refer to an investigator, it was just like reset expectations, document a conversation with her. This woman would be talking about things that she was doing on the weekends and just really disturbing stuff that was affecting everybody around her, and management just failed to step in.
Did you ever pull her aside as a supervisor and have a conversation with her like that these things are not appropriate? What was her attitude when you did?
That I was blowing things out of proportion, that it's not what I heard,
You're the
or
problem,
that
not
I
her.
was retaliating against her because I keep talking to her about the same things, and I'm like, dude, you keep doing the same things. Thinking back on it, it's definitely very, very like frustrating and irritating because you just want to do the right thing. And it has nothing to do with being a whistleblower, a tattletale, or anything like that, because we've all seen things in our day where we're like, oh, whatever. Like, I didn't see it. It didn't happen. I mean, nothing to this scale. This is just something that you can't overlook. And it was so far, I mean, things that I can't even say on this podcast because it was just such vile, horrible things that would come out of this person's mouth. And nothing was ever done. I went to the investigator on my own before I left and said, hey, I was basically blackballed from contacting you about this, but here's everything I have. Have fun. Like, I don't know what else to do.
Sexually inappropriate behavior is serious and considered zero tolerance, especially even at my last institution working at a penitentiary. So much so, as a warden, I taught this class. I taught sexually inappropriate behavior.
Mm-hmm.
I taught it each week to each staff member during our annual training. They heard it directly from me. That said, what's one thing, Selena, you would want every officer, every correctional professional, male or female, to take away from your story?
I would just say that you're definitely not alone. Like, I know what I risk by going public with my story. I mean, I'm sure I'll get mean texts or hateful comments. Um, and a lot of agencies will do anything to keep internal problems from being external conversations. But if people don't start blowing the whistle and, putting this stuff out there, like, it'll always be inside, undercover, in the dark. Um, for me, I just feel like I have nothing to lose by telling my story because I'm already gone, so they can't hurt me anymore. But I have everything to gain by, like, making sure that people know their rights. Like, know your rights for reporting, know your chain of command, know who you can go over and who you can go to outside of your facility. And my dad always used to tell me, like, always do the right thing, even if it's tough. And there's a difference between doing what's good and what's right, but always, always do what's right. So for me, I mean, I gave up almost 13 years of my life in a place that I love to be and somewhere I thought I was going to retire from because there were just things that were so unethical and inappropriate that I could no longer be a part of it. And I just want people to know that they're not alone and say something to somebody. I mean, reach out to Pete or one of you guys if they need help or if they have
That's
a
right.
situation where it's like I don't trust anybody in my own organization. What do you think I should do? I mean, if I would have thought to reach outside of my state and just reach out to another warden or a major or somewhere else, I might have had a different path, but I would say
I'm going to jump on that real quick. And if you are out there and you are hearing this, there's a few things I want you to know. You can reach out to us. There's not a person on this panel right here that doesn't have an email. Email me at correctionsunfiltered@gmail.com and we will be able to connect you. If you don't want to talk to me, you want to talk to Chris, Rick, Sandra, Charlie, get with us and we'll connect you with people. There's also another thing. If you're really feeling a high level of stress, if you're feeling anxieties, dial 988. That is the National Crisis and Suicide Hotline. And they have people standing by that will talk with you and help you guide through this. We've had other people on here who've expressed to us how much stress and things they've been going through, and they had ideations that were going to be harmful to them. But they were able to get the help and support that they needed. So please, you can always reach out to correctionsunfiltered@gmail.com, 988, or reach out to somebody.
I am just, I can believe it. Okay. But I think all of us cannot believe what we're hearing. And, you mentioned something, about missing your child's first steps. And I'm sorry, I'm going
you're
back
fine.
because this is something very important to me because I too miss my daughter's first step, my first child's first steps. I was actually at a training for 2 weeks, and I was in Denver. But I'm going to tell you something. I want you to honestly think about this. Your time there was not for nothing. All right. Because first of all, you're able to look in the mirror and say to yourself and to anybody else that you did the right thing. And it's just another thing that all of us here on this panel have been wardens, associate wardens, supervisors. And, I'm going to say the vast majority of the folks that we worked with we're good people. So I'm just so I just can't even believe that you worked with so many not good people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not supportive. But I want you to know that as a mother, that your dedication and your service to corrections was not for nothing.
Thank
And the women out there in corrections, those that will be watching this podcast, those that are mothers, those that have children, those that sacrifice so much for for service in corrections, we thank you and
Yeah.
we appreciate you.
thank you so much.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for coming on here, and like Sandra said, it takes a lot of courage to bring this forward. And I will say this to the system that you worked for. If you're making this basic, stupid mistake that you're handling your staff with such disregard, you're surely making some very grave, other grave mistakes in security, and just daily management of your facilities. So if any of you knuckleheads are watching this, take a good look at yourself before things go off the skids there and cause some serious harm beyond what you've done to this young lady.
And I echo Sandra and Rick as well. Thank you, Selena, for this important yet candid conversation. As the saying goes, being challenged is inevitable. Being defeated is optional. You were challenged unfairly, but you were not defeated.
Mhm.
You're still in the game. You're on this podcast, exposing, advocating, helping, and hoping for change. This conversation will help other females in corrections dealing with something similar. And quite frankly, that's what this podcast is all about.
That's my
So
hope.
on behalf of all correctional professionals, thank you, Selena, for being you and for telling your story.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's horrible because this is a total breakdown of zero tolerance. It was something that was tolerated, and it just continued to grow and manifest into something that was it was overwhelming.
Sounds to me like you held up your end of the bargain, and corrections failed you. To a point, they failed you. So don't give up. I don't think you will. I think you'll take some time and reassess, and I hope you do. But I think any other facility would be glad to have you.
Thank you.
So don't stop.
I didn't walk away because I was weak or that I couldn't handle it anymore. I walked away because I refused to be part of their silence on a lot of issues. And, what happens in the dark always comes to light. So always do the right thing, and your voice has power. So never stop speaking up about things that aren't right.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, man.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much.